and also provide clarity on its mono-currency transitional plan. This as the country phases out domestic use of the US dollar. Zimbabwe introduced the Zigg in April of last year. This was backed by gold as well as other precious metals. However, the currency hasn't quite found wide acceptance in the market. To give us a greater perspective on its performance, its highs and its lows, as well as prospects, joining us this afternoon is Vince Musewe, a Zimbabwean-based independent economist. Great to have you on African Business. Welcome, Vincent.
Hi there.
Great to have you with us. So when we take a look at the Zig, what exactly is causing the delays in the phasing out of the dollar and making the Zig the sole currency?
Well, you know what? It's a difficult transition from the US dollar to the Zig. I mean, it has happened worldwide. Any country that has tried to de-dollarize has failed to completely de-dollarize. And they've come up with various hybrids, of how to do it. You must remember that there is a serious psychological kind of rejection of the Zig because of the past where people had U.S. deposits in their bank accounts and they were converted into a local currency, and the local currency collapsed. So people lost a lot of money in 2008 and 2009. So there's serious psychological kind of resistance to say, no, not again. So, regardless that the policymakers want us to get there, there are various things that have to be in place before you create the market confidence, because this really should not be imposed on the market. The market should be confident enough to adopt the currency, and use it without being forced to or, being, pushed to actually do it.
I mean, you talk about the psychological barrier, which is a real fear because people did go through this massive devaluation of their currency. So what exactly is it going to take for the Zig to gain a level of stature, at least in the eyes of Zimbabweans?
Well, right. Okay, the first thing is that, I always say it's like when you go through trauma, you're not going to get normal until you got some counseling, okay? So the fundamental issue here, there's lack of trust between the citizens and the government in the sense that they do not believe that this government will do whatever they do in the interest of citizens. Citizens are very skeptical, given the historical issue. The other thing is that those who lost have never been compensated, for the loss. I mean, I think some have been, but there's no really a complete acknowledgement that, listen, we messed up and we're sorry and it won't happen again, and we are compensating you. And number three is that, you see, we have a situation in Zimbabwe which is it's an high import economy, where a lot of things are imported. I mean, for your information, we even import tissue paper and toothpicks, right, into the country. So taking away that foreign currency, what does it mean? Imagine that I'm a trader, I'm importing stuff using the US dollar, and suddenly I don't have access to the US dollar, but I need to import. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to the bank and ask them if I can get US dollars, right? If the bank doesn't have, what am I going to do? I'm going to ask someone who has some US dollars somewhere to help me and say, listen, can I borrow you? Can I use your US dollars? And if I have them, I will say to the guy, listen, the bank is giving you 26. I will give you a 30 if you want, because I want to make a profit on it. And the buyer will then say, oh, okay, I'd rather buy it at 30. So we go back again to creating a black parallel market simply because we don't have enough foreign currency in the country. These are the things that we have to watch. Don't
Vince,
want to go back there.
Yeah. Vince, the IMF is saying that they need clarity as far as the transitioning from the US dollar to the Zig. What type of clarity might they be seeking on the monocurrency transition plan?
Yeah, well, the IMF always kind of speaks tongue-in-cheek, kind of. Let me tell you, there are fundamental issues that have to be in place before you can actually introduce a monocurrency. It's not only monetary policy, because monetary policy is just a little measure of it. The key issue is the issue of debt. This government owes about 21 billion US dollars, right? 12 for which they owe overseas and 8 billion that they owe here. Right. Now, if we don't have the US dollar, what are they going to do? They're going to have to source those US dollars elsewhere. Where is that money going to come from? And number two, once you convert into the monocurrency, there's a risk that this government will start printing money in order to retire its local debt. And that is what caused the hyperinflation in the past. So that's what the IMF is talking about. There are other political things. You see, a currency is not only valued because of economics. It's also political issues. There's so much uncertainty going forward, fights going on. There's a lot of political uncertainty. You cannot create confidence in a situation like that. So those are the things that have to be sorted out before we can even begin to think of going to a monocurrency.
All right, we'll leave it at that, Vince, for this afternoon. Thank you so much as we focus on the transition and the transitional plan that Zimbabwe has had to put in place in order to transition from the US dollar to a completely Zig-based economy in Zimbabwe. That's Vince Musewe, a Zimbabwe-based independent economist. Thank you, sir, for your time. He takes us to exactly 4:30.